right? Is that clear? So now that client TGS session key, which was generated by the TGS, would be encrypted by the user secret key. So it's like a secret key now, because only the two sides can know. Because it's only the two sides should know the password. So if you know my password, it's basically under attack. Okay, so I should not share my password with you, because if you know my user ID as well as my password, you can really get around this. Right? So you should keep your password secret. So, like from the password, you can generate the user secret key, and once you get this, basically using that, you can decrypt and extract the inner one, the client TGS session key. Is that clear? So that's how you can extract the client TGS session key based on your user secret key, which is based on your password. Alright? So that's the level. That's the top one. That's how you decrypt this. The second one is a ticket granting ticket, though this is what we'll use to forward to the other entities. But let's see what is inside this ticket. The ticket granting ticket will have the user ID, the client network address, which means like the client IP address of the client machine, the ticket validity period, how long the ticket is valid, and the client TGS session key. So you see that the same client TGS session key which is here is also part of the ticket granting ticket. Okay? But you see this ticket granting ticket is encrypted with the TGS secret key. The TGS secret key means it is a secret key that only the authentication server and the TGS, the ticket granting server, share. So the TGS secret key is not known to the client. So like the Needham-Schroeder protocol where it was encrypted with this KB, right? This KB is not known to user A. So what this guy did, he just forwarded this, right? Same idea here. The client will just forward this ticket granting ticket encrypted with the TGS secret key. The same thing, it will be just forward to the next level. Okay? So whatever is underneath behind this arrow cannot be decrypted by the client. Okay? So it has to just use it as an encrypted version of the ticket. It's encrypted with what? The TGS secret key. So by TGS secret key, what we mean is it is a secret key shared by the authentication server with the ticket granting service, the next level of service. So we have to go through these three servers to authenticate a service. Okay? So let's see that now. So this is what I do. The first level is what I do to obtain a ticket. I sign in, I kind of send my user ID, and that guy sends these two things. I can decrypt the top one, extract my session key basically for my login session. This is my session key, and I got my ticket. So now I decide I want to use, say, a file server. Okay? So for that, I had to go through these two servers. What I need to do is, before I contact the file server, I had to forward my ticket granting ticket to this TGS server and specify the service ID. The service ID indicates what server I want to contact. If it's a file server, there will be a file service ID. If it's a web server, that will have service ID. If it's a database server, that will have service ID, and so on. So the service ID indicates what type of service I want to get. So I forward this, the ticket granting ticket, whatever it is, here, without any decryption as it is, along the service ID. I also forward what? This is like the nonce thing there. I send my user ID, the client ID, and a timestamp. The whole thing encrypted with the client TGS session key. Because the client TGS session key I know from here, right? So these are two things I send it to the ticket granting server. Now think what the ticket granting server will do. The ticket granting server doesn't right away know this client TGS session key, right? Because this is something that the authentication server told to the client. So the ticket granting server will have to decrypt the top part, right? Because I said the client TGS session key is also part of the ticket granting ticket. So to get the client TGS session key, the ticket granting server has to decrypt the top part and extract the client TGS session key, right? And TGS knows how to decrypt it because this is a secret key, this is encrypted, the secret key that's known only to the TGS and the server, right? So the TGS can decrypt this and extract the ticket granting ticket. And the ticket granting ticket has the client TGS session key. And using that, it can decrypt the bottom part and extract these three components. Okay? And now what happens? It decrypts this and extracts its timestamp, and it now sends a response to the client. The response is very similar to this response. What? The TGS generates a client to server ticket encrypted with a service secret key that is known only to this service server, the actual server that can do the service. And the top part is a kind of authentication. You see, like the nonce, it increments the timestamp and also sends like a client TGS session key, a client server session key encrypted with the client TGS session key. And since the client knows this, it can decrypt this and see what's the timestamp value. The timestamp value is like an implicit verification because this should have been incremented by 1 compared to what the client sent. If the timestamp value is not incremented, it means it's not communicating with the right server. Okay? And then it uses the client server session key to send the next message. This is where it contacts the actual server. And to the actual server, it forwards this as it is, like it forwarded this as it is to the TGS, it forwards the client to server ticket as it is to the service server. And it generates a very similar message like it sent here. Another timestamp, the user ID, client ID, now encrypted with the client server session key to the service server. So the same process happens here. The service server decrypts first using this one because this key is known only to the server, extracts the client to server ticket, and the client to server ticket will have, like this had the client TGS session key, this will have the client server session key. And using that, it can extract the timestamp and it can increment the timestamp and encrypt and send it. So very similar to the Needham-Schroeder protocol, they can kind of use this timestamp and these keys to authenticate each other. Right? So this is what they have to go through to do what? To, like, for the client to get a specific service. If it wants to get a service from another server, what it has to do? It has to send the service ID, the ticket granting ticket to the TGS. It generates a client to server ticket and then it contacts the actual server. Okay? So it has to go through these two servers every time it wants to get a service done. Okay? So just go through it a couple of times and try to see a similarity between the second and the third. It's very similar and very similar to Needham-Schroeder.
Is there any key between ticket granting server and service server?
Is there any key?
Like
yes, the ticket granting ticket will have the client TGS session key. Like this, the ticket granting ticket will have this key, and the client to server ticket will have the client to server session key. Because that key is needed to decrypt this part.
so these two share.
Yeah, very similar. Okay, yes.
Well, I just, it was like, well, you answered the question.
Okay, so it has of course some pros and cons, right? Can anyone think of the pros and cons?
I know
Yes.
the disadvantages is you have to keep going back.
Time.
Like it does, the time is not inconvenient. Should not store whatever it possesses during the first stage. Should not store and then take it to the next stage to do its encryption. Like you said, you have to go back 2 times.
Right. So that's the kind of
It's
drawback.
inconvenient, right?
Inconvenient in the sense that every time I want to access a service, right, I have to go through the ticket granting server. So again, it's like a centralized authority, it's a bottleneck. So the ticket granting server is down or something, I cannot use any service. So even though there may be some service which need not be very secure, anyone can access that server and get some service done. If I enforce this Kerberos, I have to go through this TGS for every server, to contact every server. So it's becoming like a bottleneck. Okay? And also you see a drawback that like this TGS secret key is supposed to be secret known only to these two guys. Similarly, the service secret key is supposed to be known only to these two guys, right? So it's very difficult to maintain the secrecy of these keys known only to these two servers, right? So if someone gets to know the secret key, then the whole thing will collapse, right? And also it is still, as I said in the beginning, it's based on the password. So if somebody else knows my password, and of course they know the user ID, they can fake as their user and go through the whole process. So it is still centered on the password, and because they want to avoid sending password as plain text on the channel. So that's what they were trying to do, and they're trying to derive all these things based on password. But the problem is it is still based on the password. If the password is known to somebody else, then the whole thing will fail. Okay? Now, as an advantage, what you can also see is, you see the ticket granting ticket has a validity time period. So if someone grabs your ticket, they cannot use it after the ticket expires.
So they only got so much time to spoof.
Huh?
They only got so much time. If they spoof, they only got so much time to do it
Right,
with
if they
them.
spoof, they have only limited time. And also, again, as you see, this timestamp increment process is a kind of implicit verification. The other side has to really increment the timestamp, sign it, and send it, right? But it could be a bottleneck in the sense that, you see, if I get, you send me a timestamp, right? So you have to know what's the local time at your side. So when I see it, if my clock, each computer has a clock, right? So if my clock is not synchronized with your clock, you may be running in say central time and I am running in say eastern time, then I see that there's a difference between the time, right? So I may think you are really spoofing from a ticket that you got sometime earlier, right? So in order for the whole thing to be successful, the clocks across all these servers and the client have to be kind of synchronized. Which means I should know this is the time at your side and this is the time at my side, and that's a synchronization needed.
So configuration has to be done.
Right. So which is very difficult to maintain. So you cannot really say that I'll send this timestamp and you'll just increment by 1, because if I notice that you have a different time value than what I see, then I could perceive you as kind of launching a replay attack. Replay attack means you're grabbing the ticket and trying to send it after a while. Okay? So you can get around this by using the nonce. Instead of a timestamp, you just send a random number and have to increment the random number. So there is a fix. The Needham-Schroeder protocol used a random number based verification, right? And that's the purpose of the timestamp also. The timestamp is just used to verify whether the other guy can respond back. So you can get around the timestamp issue by using a nonce, a random number, instead of generating a timestamp. Okay? So it has pros and cons, which I have listed here, advantages and weaknesses. Okay, so try to go through that. I pretty much covered the whole thing as we discussed, but explained in detail. Okay, what each of them is. Okay, so go through that, and you don't need to really memorize the whole thing, but I'll give you the kind of the thing and give some blank spaces. You just have to fill in those blank spaces. And if you see the question bank, for which I think I already posted, there's a picture that has this with some blank spaces. So you don't have to memorize the whole thing, the flow chart. You have to just fill up those blank spaces. Okay?